What's your favorite thing about going to a restaurant? What do you think? What's your favorite thing about going to a restaurant?
Not doing the dishes. There we go.
Oh, man. Jump to the end. That is it. Not cooking, right? Nobody cares about the food. Billy likes the food. You like the food, right? That's because you never clean up. See, that's right. No. The food is great. How about the atmosphere? Who likes the atmosphere? You know, you get to relax, nice lighting, the smells. The fact that somebody asked you what you wanted to eat maybe that day, right? Or they bring out the food to you. And then, like Tim said, no cleanup. You can walk away. Just leave. We went on a cruise once as a family. Mixed reviews on that, because we were all sick, just sick the whole time. But I know a lot of you, do you call yourselves cruisers? Is that like a thing? No, you just like cruises, okay. So, but anyway, I will say a highlight was you sit down, you eat all you want. My son, they have ice cream and pizza all day, 24/7, right? But you just leave and all your stuff is on the table. Someone else picks it up because we all love to be served. It's nice when other people do things for you. But also I've noticed that people get a lot of joy out of serving others. A lot of people are kind and generous, but then there are those times when things go terribly wrong. If people were always kind and generous, I think the world would be a much better place, don't you? But we can all admit that there's a lot of corruption in the world. There's a lot of taking. There's a lot of selfishness, a lot of demanding and fighting going on. We want a better world, so why don't we have a better world? Why are people still hurt? Why are people still making demands? Why is there so much pain in the world? So we're continuing on in the Gospel of Mark, and that's important to understand. It's a gospel. There are 4 gospels. What does gospel mean? Well, we say, the gospel means the good news, but it's a little bit more than just the good news. The gospel is an announcement. It was usually in the time of Rome and Greece, it was an announcement that there was a new king. So maybe a king had died or Caesar had died, and there was a new one coming up. So the heralds would go out to all of the villages and all of the cities, right? And they would announce to everyone, there's a new king who's come to power. That was a good thing, because the worst thing that could happen at that time period, and really any time period, is that you would be without a king. That means there would be chaos. That means there would be a lot more pain and suffering. You would hope for a good king, but no king was really bad because you were going to be conquered if you didn't have a king. So kings would bring order. So there were citizens of this new kingdom, and there would be laws and property and military and leaders and currency, all because of a new king. The king establishes those things. He enforces those laws. So if you come into that kingdom, you're going to have to live the way the king says that you're going to live. So I want us to keep this idea in mind. We are citizens of a new kingdom, a different kingdom. And listen to how Jesus says it's different in God's kingdom. Listen to what Jesus, the king, expects the leaders and the citizens of that kingdom, how he expects them to live. And then I want you to judge for yourself. How is the kingdom that Jesus describes different than the kingdom that we live in today? We would call it the kingdom of this world. We don't belong to the kingdom of this world. We belong to Jesus' kingdom. Sometimes we call it the heavenly kingdom or God's kingdom. So we're going to jump into Mark chapter 10, verses 35 through 45. Dial in, judge for yourself. What is the difference between the kingdom of God, Jesus' kingdom, and the kingdom that we live in? Here's what Mark writes. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came over and spoke to him. This is Jesus. Teacher, they said, we want you to do us a favor. What is your request? He asked. They replied, when you sit on your glorious throne, We want to sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left." But Jesus said to them, "You don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I am about to drink? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism of suffering I must be baptized with?" "Oh, yes," they replied, "we are able." Then Jesus told them, "You will indeed drink from my bitter cup and be baptized with my baptism of suffering. But I have no right to say who will sit on my right or my left. God has prepared those places for the ones he has chosen." When the 10 other disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were indignant. So Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many." So can I take some time to boast here? Just a little bit, right? I am so proud to be part of a people who love to serve. Love to serve. Max and Krista just this last weekend took the students up to the Poconos, right? And we were short a female chaperone, so Krista jumped in there. Really appreciate that. Max, as usual, Max for many years has been leading the youth. He comes every Friday evening, sacrifices, even when he's sick, like this past week, he comes and he leads our youth. We have musicians that you see and technical people in the back. Our hospitality team back there that preps food. We're always prepping food. We love to eat, all right? Always making coffee and tea and Wednesday night dinners and alpha dinners. We have nursery and kids workers. We have those who will visit the sick and encourage and call and send gigantic cards, right? I spoke to Wendy yesterday. As soon as she answered the phone, I nearly fell off my chair. She sounds so great. She's watching right now. Julie just showed me a text from her. It's wonderful. We have people who install security cameras, right? Fix the plumbing. We have people who seek out newcomers and introduce themselves to them to welcome people. And we can't forget what it took just to get this place operational. Do you remember how many trips, 1 billion trips to the parking lot to fill up a dumpster 2 or 3 times? I don't know. It was a bunch. We hung doors. Remember, Vinny, all the evenings with you, me, and Ron hanging doors here and trying to make everything fit just right. Painting, hanging ceiling tiles, fixing HVAC, and built tables and floors and booths. I could go on and on with our boasting. I'm sure I'm missing some people and some things that have been going on, but wow, I'm so proud of being a part of a people who love to serve. But it really makes you wonder, why would people who were once just strangers come together with such enthusiasm, willingness to serve, a willingness to care for one another? Could it be that something remarkable has happened? Could it be that there's a transformation that has happened, taken place, just like what we see in Mark's gospel? Now, at this point, you can tell the disciples don't quite get it, but they will. It's understandable. They don't really know what's going on, but they'll get it. A little rough going at first. Soon enough, they'll see. There's a reason, though, that Mark is sharing this with us. He wants us to pull the curtain back. He wants us to look and gaze into heaven. He wants us to get a view of what's going on in God's kingdom. It's very important. Things are very different in God's kingdom than in our kingdom. And here we read 2 of the disciples, they want a favor from Jesus. In Matthew's gospel, it says that their mother came with them. They had to get mommy to ask for them. But here it just says James and John approached Jesus. And James and John are trying to set themselves up for what they think is coming. It's the kind of kingdom that they think Jesus is setting up. Essentially, they want cabinet positions in the new administration, right? We'd like to be your vice president, maybe your secretary of state. Or if think of a football team, well, there's going to be a new head coach. Let us be the offensive coordinator, and this one will be the defensive coordinator. Or maybe they're thinking, Jesus, you're going to be a superstar. I'll be your agent. My brother here will be your manager. Jesus, together, we're going to rule the world. You say, wow, that's a bold move. Wouldn't you say? That's a really bold move to ask that of Jesus. But if James and John really knew where Jesus was headed, they might think twice. They might say, I don't know that's what we want. And if the other disciples knew where Jesus was headed, they might not be so indignant. They might say, fine, guys, you go right ahead. You go ahead with Jesus, we'll stay back here. But that's not what happened. Jesus says, can you handle it? Can you handle being at the right and left of me in the new kingdom? Oh, yes, they reply. Now, all you have to do is fast forward a little bit to when Jesus was arrested. What did the disciples do? They all ran, took off. In fact, one ran so hard and so fast that he slipped out of his clothing and ran away naked. Sorry for that visual, but that's what happened. It speaks to what they were thinking all along. They thought that Jesus was on his way to defeat the Romans, their enemies, to kick them out, and even the Jewish leaders at the time who were corrupt. There's going to be a revolution. Jesus says, I don't think you really know what I'm doing here. There's a different kind of qualification needed to be a leader in my kingdom. Now, the other disciples, we're told, were indignant. Of course they were. Humans acting like humans. This is what humans do. They get offended. We get offended. Why do people get offended most of the time? The next time you're offended, I want you to ask yourself some questions. Because sometimes there's a good reason to be offended, but a lot of times there's not. But what is it that really offended me? Ask yourself, what really, truly offended me? Was it an injury to my pride? Am I offended because my status or my sense of self-worth was threatened? Am I offended because my image of myself was tarnished? Am I offended because I just didn't get what I expected? These are the words that we use. This is what it sounds like in our head. We say things like, you can't talk that way about me. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're better than me? Why should you get that? Why should he get that or she get that? Why am I not included? Maybe this is the kind of talk that you're around at work all day or at school. This is the way people talk. Even family members. Some of us have family members who talk this way all the time. It's constant competition. You always feel that pressure. You can't relax. Even if it's not for an official position, it's subtle. Just this underlying competition for recognition, for inclusion, for status. Now, let me tell you a little secret that everyone knows. We are incurably social creatures. That's why solitary confinement is a form of torture. We hate being alone. Even introverts do not want to entirely be alone. They might argue with you, but it's true. We go crazy without social interaction. You say, well, I just won't care about people then. Well, that's like saying, well, I just won't breathe. We need it. We're made this way. It's also why social media is such an important part in people's lives nowadays. It's why we have the radio on in the car or the TV on at home, even when we're not actively watching. We just are social creatures. And that's also why rejection hurts so much. That's why grieving divorce can be even worse many times than grieving death. So if you think you're not bringing value to a group, you're going to be terribly insecure. It's like your life is the game of Survivor. You're about to be kicked off the island, and that rejection frightens you. You don't want to be a loser in life. You'll be all alone if you lose in life. We don't want to be alone. This is what's kind of going on in the minds of the disciples. It's like a horse race, and they're jockeying for first position. Who's going to get the acknowledgement? Who's going to get the position of power? The right to tell others the way it is. You don't tell me what to do. I tell you what to do because I'm the boss. So we want to be the biggest and the baddest, or the most beautiful or popular, whatever it takes to get the status we need so that we're not rejected. Because that'll open doors, make us special. We'll feel special, we'll be accepted. People like to be in control, makes them feel powerful. They like that position of authority. They like the independence. We like to be able to decide for ourselves, because if I'm in charge, then no one gets to tell me what to do. I may not be the CEO of a big, powerful company, but at least I'll be the CEO of my life. I will be the king in my domain. When I was a kid, I couldn't wait to get my driver's license. Anybody else just couldn't wait? My birthday, I was there ready to get my driver's license. It feels powerful to have that independence. And I just like to drive. I don't know, some people like to drive, some people don't. I like to drive. But what happens the moment that a passenger gets in my car? Do you know what I become? The chauffeur. How does that work? They're relaxing and I'm working. I have to work to drive them. Sometimes they even tell me which way to go. Every morning I see all these dogs taking their pets for a walk. I know who's in charge because I know who picks up Imagine if aliens just came to Earth and saw these creatures. Who do you think they would say are the servants? And you parents, you think you're free. At mealtime, your kid gets a special chair just for him. You tie a napkin around his neck or her neck. He gets special food made just for him, just for her. He gets a special bowl, a special cup, special utensils. You even feed him one spoonful at a time. You're not free. You can't leave. You must be right there feeding him. And if he drops his food on the floor, he looks at you like, what are you waiting for? Get busy, woman. And he can do his or her business wherever he wants and whenever he wants. And if you decide that you won't give in to his demands, he'll look at you with eyes that say, you'd better get to work or people will come and arrest you for negligence. Face it, your kid is a dictator. He owns you. If you walk around an airport, you'll see pilots, all dressed up with fancy shoes, a nice hat. They used to wear blazers. I think it's changing some now, but, they'll wear a tie, look very distinguished. Do you know why they wear that? They wear that out of respect for you. We think they wear that because they're important. No. The important ones are the ones who've paid the pilots to fly them around so that you can sit in your pajamas and slippers on the plane. You see, you're the important ones, not them. They dress up for you. Isn't that a different way of thinking? When I wear nice clothes, it's not so that I can seem important, so everybody can say, look at me. It's because I want to respect you. I'm doing this for you. The fancier the restaurant, the more dressed up the staff is. Have you noticed that? You're not going to a 3 Michelin star restaurant and everybody just coming and serving you like they came out of their garden. No, they're dressed up for you. If you go to a concert, the lights are on the artist on stage, right? You might think that you're there for them. No. They are there at your request. They had to put on their expensive outfits and their makeup, and they had to jump all around the stage and sweat while you sit back and enjoy the show. They had to practice hours and hours just to please you, They work for you. You say, well, let's make sure that we get a good show here tonight. Okay, I paid good money for it. You've paid money for them to do a song and dance for you. Who are the most important ones in that room? When I cut my lawn and I trim the bushes and I pull the weeds and maybe I power wash the driveway or something like that, people drive by and they say, well, look how nice that house looks. I did it for my neighbors. I did it for people driving back. Think about it. I paid money, or I got out there myself, right? And I sweat and I got my hands dirty to clean up the house. So I worked so that others could see and experience something beautiful and nice. Who am I working for? Not so much myself, really, other people. Look how beautiful the world is that God made without us trashing it. God made the world beautiful for us. That's why the more godless the world becomes, if you'll notice, the uglier the world becomes. The further people move away from God, the more we live for ourselves, not for other people. And the more we expect things to be done for us. You can't always tell the difference. You can't always tell when someone's motivated by the wrong thing. Sometimes it looks the same. But God knows the hearts. God knows why people do what they do. If you want to know for yourself where your heart is, you can do a little test. But the test only works if you're truly honest with yourself. If I'm trying to show others how important I am, then I've turned something that should be selfless into something that is selfish. If I wrap my identity and my self-worth into what I've done or what I have, then I've turned something beautiful into something ugly. And so there's only one solution for this problem of the heart. We talked about the heart last week. Only one solution. We need a rescuer. We need someone who will make the world beautiful again. Someone who will make the world right. And this is where Jesus' rescue operation is to set things right. This is what Mark is talking about in his gospel, in his announcement that there's a new king. Verse 42, Jesus said, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. See, in our broken world, leadership is about power. I think we all know that. The people on the bottom are there for the benefit of the people at the top. The human heart that is moving in that direction always ends up that way. Always ends up thinking that their power is for themselves. But that person lives in fear. The reason people have that fear is because this is what we experience every day. I can't lose. I can't lose in life. If I lose in life, then it's over. I can't give up. I've got to be stronger. I've got to be smarter. I've got to be better. I've got to be right every time. I can't show weakness. If I show weakness, then I'm going to get a bad deal. And I won't be in control anymore, and I won't have power. And that fear grows within our hearts, and it turns us into monsters. And see, at that point, then I'm in real danger. Because I will become incredibly insecure. I'll be insecure if those things are threatened in my life. I will be injured. I will be angry. Think of it this way. Imagine if I was a beautiful person. You don't have to imagine very hard. I mean, I'm sitting right in front of you. Right? But imagine if I was like incredibly, like mega beautiful. So wonderful. If I've built my worth on my beauty, on my looks, as soon as it begins to fade, I'll become desperate. I'll become depressed. I'll think my life doesn't have the same worth or value because I've taken this gift that God gave me as a blessing for myself. I'll think that my beauty was for myself. Coaches, I've witness coaches who are so determined to win that they will make their students practice six days a week, maybe even 7. There was just not too long ago a lawsuit with parents against this school. They've said, these coaches have said, if you miss any practices, even for a funeral, they were telling the students, you won't make the team. Coaches have said, don't plan on any family vacations in August. You're not going to make the team. I've had my own family members have to leave Christmas gatherings early because they had practice the next day. And then when one parent speaks up, the other parents tell them privately, they say, well, I'm glad you said something, but I won't because I don't want my kid to suffer and lose. See, anytime I elevate those things in my life that I'm depending on to a priority over the things of God, I'm glorifying myself. Or how about a coworker that would never help someone else get better because they would be threatened? They might take their job. Or an abusive husband who must control rather than lead his family. Even an abusive wife, that can happen. Or someone who maybe manipulates through guilt or playing the victim. What do we become? We become defensive. No tenderness, no grace, no forgiveness. Why? Because we become the focus. My focus is on how I feel. My focus is on what's going on in my life. Jesus says, no, not in my kingdom. It's different in my kingdom. In my kingdom, the air is clean. People can breathe. You can rest. You can relax. There's not all of this competition, not all this fighting for position and power and control. Look at verses 43 and 44. But among you, it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. Are we different? Do you want a different world? I want a different world. I want to be different. God, help me be different. Help me be a citizen of your kingdom. This is what Jesus has been saying to the Israelite nation. In fact, it's a lot of what he's saying in the Gospels. To Israel, he's saying, God gave you something special. He made you something special. Not so you could enrich yourselves, not so you could bless yourselves, not because you earned it, not because you deserve it. It's so that you would bless the world. But you turned it into self-pride. You turned it into arrogance. You turned it into power, thinking that you were the chosen one, so you were the special ones above other people. Here's what we should keep in mind. God's gifts to us are actually for others. Whatever good things God gave you, it's for others. You say, well, I don't have a lot. Good. You don't have a lot to lose then. It's easier to give it away. You don't have to hold on so tightly. When God gave Joanna and me children, they were dedicated in our church service. We prayed along with our church. We said, God, they're yours. They're not ours. This means they're to be a blessing for others, a blessing for God. Our children don't belong to us. And that means that we have to be good stewards of what God gave us. We have to do a good job in pointing them in the right direction. We have to show them. We need to teach them, lead them in God's direction. They're not ours, they're His. They're for Him, they're for others. We need to protect them from the distractions and the temptations of this world. So let me boast again while Alina come on up and we'll have a little bit of prayer time, but I want to boast again because Navigate is a people who've committed themselves to Jesus first and also to one another. That's what we are, and it's what we're continuing to try to be, to try to achieve is this community of people who really love one another. Not perfect. I think we all know, far from it, right? But growing in love, growing toward each other, toward Christ and toward each other. I've seen it happen. It's happening. Many of us are becoming more tender-hearted, more hopeful, more generous, more giving, more caring. It's just growing and growing in depth and maturity because we're responding to what Jesus has for us, what he's called us to. I've seen people who were angry become grateful and loving and patient and kind. God's moving. And I just want to boast a little bit about it because I love it. If you let this thought take root in the soil of your heart, okay, nourish it. How do you nourish the soil of your heart? Well, through teaching, through praying, through singing, through a loving fellowship like this, engaging other believers. You will be a new and different kind of person. Do you know that your associations, they help shape you. They help form your soul, your mind, who you're with. Everybody knows this. If you're with people who are negative, you'll most likely be negative. If you have people who love God, you'll be drawn toward God. You'll be encouraged. You'll be blessed. Look what Jesus says in verse 45. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and to give his life as a ransom for many. What did we do to deserve that? What did we do to deserve that kind of love? That Jesus would give his life for us. You see, when you receive the love and grace and forgiveness of Jesus, your heart changes into a forgiving person. You no longer see the world as existing for you, but you see yourself as a gift to the world. You're welcome. That's what you could say to the world. Truly, you're welcome, but not because of what I did, not because I'm so special, but because I've given myself to God. And everything he's given me is for others. So I want you to ask yourself this question. What am I living for? It's a great question. I ask myself this question all the time. What am I living for? Do you know the answer? If you don't, then you should move on to question 2, which is this. God, would you show me what you want me to be? Show me what you want me to be if you don't know what you're living for. And here's one of the ways, maybe the primary way, that Jesus does show us what we're called to be. It's through this kind of a community. We call it the church. A lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about the church. I think the church deserves a good amount of that, including the leaders. But it's still the way, and it's still the best way. You know why? Because Jesus made the church. It's not a human thing. It's a God thing. He made the church. So we're supposed to be together. That's his will. That's what he wants. So if you said, yes, I accept the forgiveness of Jesus, I accept him as the King, as the Lord, as the one who gets to tell me what to do, then your next step, if you haven't done this yet, is to be baptized in water. You say, what in the world is that? That sounds kind of weird and strange, but actually it's been going on for thousands of years. And you would just be participating in the way people have come to God for a very long time. It's a relationship with God. It's an identification with his death, his burial, and his resurrection. So that's your next step. Talk to me about it. Reach out. You can, I know it's kind of cheesy, but these little things on the tables, you can connect or just go on our website and say, I would like to be baptized. I would like to know more about Jesus and what it means to follow him. The other thing is to connect. We offer different ways to do that. The primary way is on Sunday mornings, the church gathers to worship. Not just to worship. If you notice, every time we come together on a Sunday, there's this little break time. I know it's not much, okay? But even the way we've set this room up is on purpose. It's because we believe in loving one another. And to love one another, you got to get to know each other. And sometimes you want to share with one another and go deeper. And so we try to facilitate that. Hang out, be engaged, come and worship. Let the Bible and these scriptures and the songs form and shape you, and be formed and shaped by other believers who are around you who deeply care about you. So be engaged, be connected. Wednesday nights is a great thing. If you're not part of our Discord channel, that's a great thing too, because we're sharing prayer requests on there all the time, and even announcements and different things that are going on. There's lots of ways to serve even. Be engaged. Why? Because to serve others is best. It's best. We are gifts to the world. If anybody ever wondered if you matter, or if you have a purpose, or if there's a calling in your life, on your life, absolutely there is. And sometimes to the world it looks simple and it looks boring and it looks like not much. But let me tell you something. We'll know in heaven the significance of what we do here. It will be clear. We can believe and trust. So ask God, what have you called me to? Who am I? What am I living for? Show me what you want me to live for. Would you stand with me?